with the investigators when they said, we've got him?
Well,
We've got the name?
the first most meaningful call in that respect that I got was, I got to get my days right here. Today's Friday. Yesterday was Thursday. So um, Wednesday night, when I got the call that a citizen now known only as John came in. That was really the breakthrough moment in the investigation. I was at home. Colonel.
What time was that?
It was in the evening. It was probably 10 or 10:30 at night.
What they tell you?
And Colonel called me and said, the individual from the picture came in. I said, you're kidding. And because this was only an hour or two after we put the picture out. He said, yeah, we've got him in the interview room right now. I said, well, how do we find him? And he said, he just walked up to a Providence police officer and said, I understand there's a photo of me out there, and you're looking to talk to me.
Wow.
It's just remarkable. I can't say enough to say that never happens, but it's certainly not what we expected to be the case.
Did you ever meet him?
I never did. No.
How do you feel about him?
The city and me owe him a debt of gratitude. From that interview to last night was 24 hours.
Yeah.
This thing went slowly, and then it went fast. And that's because of his information.
Has this been the hardest challenge you've ever faced?
Yeah.
Period in your whole life?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How tough?
The pressure was extraordinary. The fear and anxiety in the community was palpable, and the weight on my and the chief's shoulders was immense. And we had different jobs, Oscar and I. Oscar's job was to solve the case. I tried to stay out of the way, let him do his job, trust him, support him. My job was to try to help the community stay calm, stay patient, be helpful, because we needed their help. And so we both had different jobs, but we both did our jobs.
So you say it was the pressure was enormous. Any other reasons why it was your biggest challenge, emotionally, for example?
I think people know I love this job. I became very involved in the U.S. Conference of Mayors from the get-go. I've got mayor friends around the country now, and I've talked to other mayors who've been through incidents like this. And so it's true. I mean, intellectually, I knew something like this could happen, but it's very different than when it did happen. And I think I thought, like a lot of Rhode Islanders thought, that, like, well, who would ever bother with little Rhode Island?
Yes.
And like, we love our little place here, but not everybody knows it. I mean, I could count. I lost count the number of times whenever I meet someone out of town and says, "Oh, you're the mayor of Provincetown." You're like, no, Providence. And so we do sometimes feel like we're off the radar.
So how did it feel to be in the center of the global radar? Literally the global radar.
Like it shook me. It shook me, and I did have this. I never thought it would happen here sense, and so that emotion of our little hamlet being threatened in that way and shaken in that way was so upsetting. And then, over the course of the last 5 days, meeting with survivors in the hospital, talking to their parents, talking to parents at school drop-off in the morning with visible anxiety.
Which school drop-off did you do that?
I tried to do all the surrounding schools. So I was at Martin Luther King, Vartan Gregorian, Hope High School, Nathan Bishop.
Why did you decide to do that?
Because they're the ones closest.
No, why did you decide to go to a school drop-off?
Oh, I thought it was really important to keep the schools open.
Yeah.
And pushed hard for it.
Yeah.
Which is another one of these pressure points, which is not everyone agreed with that decision.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for kids to be able to keep a routine and a sense of normalcy. And I think it's important for parents who can't afford to miss a day of work to be able to send their kids to school.
Who opposed that decision?
Nobody opposed it directly, but there was clearly a lot of anxiety from some of the adults in the building and some of the other parents, and we heard those concerns. From the parental perspective, my answer to that is that's a kitchen table decision. If you feel like it's not right to send your kid to school, that's fine.
Do you have to struggle with that decision?
I mean, I knew that it was
Keeping schools, keeping the city open, telling people to go about their lives?
it was a little bit of a risk, to be sure. But we couldn't stay locked up for a week. I was talking to, along the way, some other leaders who've been through this. Obviously, Mayor Menino is dead, but I talked to his chief of staff when he was the mayor during the marathon bombing. And that was 5 days.
Okay.
I talked to the chief of police at the time from Fairfax County, Virginia, during the DC sniper case. That was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And Luigi Mangione was 5 days. And I was trying to get advice about how to keep people calm and how to lead through the growing anxiety of an extended investigation. And it's just not possible or necessarily advisable to stay in lockdown for a week. But the hardest question I got, and I got it multiple times a day, is how do you know we're safe? And as I said multiple times, which was really unsatisfying to people at this time, we had no specific or credible threat. We had no reason to believe this guy was still in the area. But I understand the other side of that question, which is we didn't know that he wasn't still in the area. But kids still needed to have a routine and go to school, and people still needed to go to work.
Was there a low point for you?
Emotionally, the low point was Sunday afternoon. Sort of the initial adrenaline had worn off. That was my first visit to the hospital, and it sort of all came to a head that it was all really sinking in, and it was a very emotional time for me. And then I sort of got it back together.
How many people did you see in the hospital?
I saw five. At the time, there were 7 in the hospital. At the time, there were 8 in the hospital. And I saw 5 of them plus 1 parent.
And was there any particularly emotional moment in those meetings?
The most emotional was one of the individuals was convinced that one of the other students had saved his life, and he wanted to know how he was. And the doctors were talking to him about how they were going to arrange for them to see one another. And that one, like, genuine concern for someone else at a time while this young person is in a hospital bed with gunshot wounds, and the relief and hopefulness that the survivor had that he'd get to see his friend.
They were both wounded?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. It was remarkable.
Did you get choked up? Did you cried during this?
I did not get choked up at the hospital. I thought that wouldn't be helpful for everyone, and I have not had a good chance to cry. I'm not a particularly emotional person. I got choked up at the press conference that afternoon on Sunday, and then on, I think it was Wednesday night, there was a service at Brown at St. Sebastian's, and I mean, on a good day, I get choked up during Amazing Grace, but when they sang Amazing Grace in that moment, I was there with Jim, and I grabbed his hand hard and cried a little bit. But I haven't had the real release yet.
You I noticed at some press conferences you got a little pissed off. You got kind of angry at some of the questions. What was that about?
We relied heavily and are grateful to the press for helping us communicate information that needed to be communicated because we needed the community's help. And I can't speak for any of the other partners who are up there, but I can speak for myself and for the city. I'm not shying away from hard questions, and I'm not afraid to answer questions about what's next and what we might have done differently or better. But in the moment, we needed help, and we needed to get information out, and people needed to know what was going on. And sometimes those questions were not constructive at that moment.
Yeah.
And these were
Well, I see it
largely.
the other way. I see that you were trying. You seem to feel, I'm going to keep some discipline on this press conference, and you seem to have brought a little bit of a strong will to that. Is that something you were mindful of?
It was clear to me that everybody was tuning into these.
Yeah.
Everybody was tuning into these.
Like, all the way from
I was
across the
getting-
country and even the world.
Not just that, but for me, more importantly, I was sort of more focused on people here in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like the early COVID days when everyone tuned in every day. I'm getting hundreds of text messages. I saw the press conference. And so people are sort of looking for a signal of, should we be calm or should we panic? And so it was important to communicate that signal of, we're making progress. There are professionals hard at work who know what they're doing. And in order to get to a resolution here, we all need to do our best to stay calm in a difficult situation. And that is separate from sort of the words spoken. That tone, that demeanor mattered a lot to the people watching and listening and reading.
Was there a side of you that you were perhaps surprised by during this phase while you were facing this crisis? A side of you that you felt rose to the occasion, perhaps, that you didn't realize was in you?
So I mentioned a few minutes ago that I'm not a particularly emotional person.
Yeah.
And I have been accused of being cold sometimes. But this was an emotional event. It's still emotional. And I think it was important that people also saw that it was okay to be emotional. Still stay focused. We still had a job to do, but this is not normal. And it's okay to not feel normal in this whole thing. And it was important, I think, for me to also be willing to let my guard down a little bit for everyone's sake.
People that were saying that you actually had a surprising, eloquent, and command presence during this. And maybe it's because, if you don't mind my just throwing a question at you with a little bit of edge to it, maybe people thought that our policy wonk, somewhat dirty mayor with the librarian-esque glasses wouldn't really be able to step up to this international challenge of a grave incident in this community. Some people were thinking that.
I mean, I don't reject that description. That's who I am. and I guess I didn't know if I would be able to step up to it. There's no way to know until you're in it.
And so what do you learn about yourself?
I certainly have a greater confidence in my leadership skills for what else might come in the future. I hope we never go through this again, certainly. But there'll be tough times ahead.
Yeah.
That's how life is.
You got really beat up on some of the, on Fox, for example. I don't know if you ever saw it, but people like Jesse Waters were saying, oh, here's this blue city with a gay mayor and a DEI police chief, and they had pictures of you in a gay pride parade, and we're just kind of dismissing you out of hand for that reason. Did you ever see anything like that or hear about it? And I wonder how you felt about it.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I heard about it. I was pretty disciplined about not really not following anything other than the local news.
Yeah.
And I mean, on a weekly basis before all of this, I don't watch cable news or anything like that. And so either side. So I was intentionally very disciplined about not doing that so that I didn't get distracted. But as I understood, it sort of got worse and worse. Invariably, people started saying things to me about it.
Like what?
Oh, Fox is being totally unfair, or this is outrageous. I can't believe they're saying this.
Saying what? Saying what I just said.
Saying what you just said.
Blue state mayor that doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and and because it's Rhode Island, we sort of all know each other, but they apparently got some very key facts wrong. They misidentified my chief of staff. They at one point misidentified my husband with someone at a Palestinian rally, which, if you know anything about me, is not the case. And so I don't want to say I made light of it, but it sort of, in a sense, it almost made it easier to tune out because it was so off base.
Under your skin and all.
No, I've got a thick skin about that stuff. I really do.
It's Fox, but they mocked you nationally.
I don't care. I sincerely have a thick skin about this stuff. I'm always a little skeptical of people who run for office for like a big job and have never run for anything, because it's like anything. You develop calluses over time. You develop a thick skin over time. And while this is my first time in elected office, I've been in public service for a while now. I've been criticized before. I've been beat up before. I've been mocked before. And I've gotten better and better over the years at letting it roll off my back. And that training served me well because I just ignored it. And stayed focused.
Is there anything earlier in your life that gave you the thick skin growing up and seeing, coming out, or other things like, remember you?
Yeah, I'm not.
You had a single mom, your dad wasn't around. Anything else gave you thick skin going back?
I'm just a 46-year-old version of what I was as a kid. I've always been a skinny, nerdy, gay kid, and I got beat up plenty in school. I got harassed plenty. And so I think that's good training for these kind of moments. I've always beat a little bit to my own drum, and as my mother would say, and so it's given me enough self-confidence to just be who I am.
Who gave you that confidence to get through, especially those childhood episodes, instead of being less resilient as a result of being beaten up and mocked, etc.?
My family, my mom.
Kind of a single.
Yeah, my mom. Yeah, and I don't want to disrespect my father at all. He was living somewhere else, but I have a nice relationship with him. But I was, raised in my mom's house, and she remains the best mom anyone could.
She's still with us?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where she live?
She's in the same house I grew up in suburban Chicago. The town's called Glenview. Yeah, so in Glenview. Next week I'll be flying home to celebrate Christmas with her.
How old is she now?
70. No, she's born in 53. I'm just doing the math. 72. And she's the best you could hope for. And my big brother too. So
where is he?
He's also in Glenview.
What's he do for a living?
He's a personal trainer. He and I are night and day different.
Personal trainer, full-time?
Full-time personal trainer, great dad, sports fanatic, doesn't follow politics. I think he votes, but I'm not sure. Like night and day. But we're great friends. But when we were kids, he was sort of famous for saying, "Nobody beats up Brett but me." And
Really?
and so, certainly had the big brother role and harassed me a little bit, but also protected me from others, which is terrific, and I'm grateful for it. And so those early lessons served me well, and then a career in public service of getting criticized, and I've had high-profile roles before this one, high-profile roles before this one that have come with criticism.
Give me one example.
Well, I don't know if you feels so trite now, given everything we've been through over the last many years. You might remember when had just started as I was 6 months into my service as chief of staff to Gina, and I tweeted a bad word about the soon-to-be president, which, looking back on, looks like the mildest thing that anyone could say, given how discourse has degraded in this country in the years since. But at the time was a whole thing, and I had to make a public apology. And at the time, I don't resent having been asked to do that. It's just funny how fast standards have changed.
Yeah. You still looking for why you want to keep putting yourself through the fire, as you said, even earlier public service, certainly in the last week.
Yeah.
This has been cauldron. This has been why do you want to stay in public service when there is so much stress and challenge?
So the older I get, the more convinced I get that having a sense of purpose is the most important thing. And different people get their sense of purpose from different things, and that's fine. Some people's purpose is to make money. Some people's purpose is to care for others. Some people's purpose is to serve. And I think I've found my sense of purpose. I think what I do matters. And I think I'm making my home a better place. And I hope I get a chance to do it for a little while longer.
Was there a point where you felt most gratified by someone thanking you, whether it was just some everyday person in Providence or somebody involved in the investigation?
Well, I'll tell you, back to the school visits, there were more than a few parents who gave me a hug early in the morning, and you might remember Monday, Tuesday, it was particularly cold. So it's like 15 degrees. I'm standing on the sidewalk on Sessions in front of Nathan Bishop Middle School, and freezing my tail off, my feet are numb. And to have a mom and come up and give me a hug and say thank you for being here. And then at Barton Gregorian, because it's an elementary school, it was a little bit more unspoken, because I think parents were trying to keep their kids from everything that was going on. And so the middle school kids, and certainly the high school kids, knew what was going on. Kids have phones. It's a different world, not the world I grew up in. But the elementary school kids are still in that bubble. And so that sort of knowing look, the mouthed, so that, first grader doesn't hear it, doesn't know that something's different. Just like, oh, the mayor's here to say good morning and have a great day, was really touching, and felt like I was doing a good service to the community.
What is your role now that...
The healing process is what's next. Part of that healing process, if we can get answers, is to find out why. Why Providence? Why Brown? Why that classroom? I hope we get those answers. We don't know if we're going to get those answers. I won't be the one doing that investigation either, but I want those answers. I think we all want those answers. So hopefully we get that. I think that will help.
Is there anything else you're going to try to make policy change, whether it's more cameras or around for more cameras, or anything beyond that you're going to push for?
We're going to ask all those questions. I'm extraordinarily proud of the work of this department.
Yeah.
And but we should always be asking, could we have done better? Is there a tool or technology or tactic that will make us safer going forward? Yeah. Those are totally fair questions, and we're going to ask them. That the time to ask those questions wasn't yesterday, but now is the time to ask those questions. And so we're going to do a thorough review. We'll get some probably outside third-party advice to do so. And because while I hope this never happens again, other things will happen. And we want to do everything we can to keep this community safe.
So you're going to basketball?
Yeah.
You're getting pretty fidgety over there.
Oh, he's doing fine.
Okay, final question.
Okay.
You say you're going to the basketball game tonight?
Yeah.
And you say you got 3 hours sleep last night? How many hours the night before?
About the same.
Probably the same the last 5 nights?
Yeah, the first night was like an hour.
So why don't you go back to sleep instead of going to the basketball game?
I think, I don't want to say that everything's back to normal, because it's not. But I do think it's important that the mayor, because there's Brett, but then there's the mayor. I think it's important that the mayor demonstrates that it's okay to be out, that it's okay to be with people in a crowd, in a crowded place. And I think it's important to show that that clear, confident step forward on behalf of the city.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Indulging me, Anthony. I can stay a little bit longer.
That's all right. That's why he's here, because I'd keep talking.